Eternal star Kumail Nanjiani recently went on the excellent podcast Inside of You, link in the description, that the poor reception of the film, the first solidified rotten percentage on Rotten Tomatoes for an MCU film, shocked him to a point of being prompted to seek out counseling. He said that Marvel was sure that everyone was going to love this movie, that they had released the embargo early and put the film out in festivals, and had the actors go on a world tour for the film, but when the reception turned out mostly negative, it caused a lot of trauma and anxiety. While he rightfully chose afterwards to start viewing the value of his work coming from the process of acting and making his films rather than other people's perception of them, I feel like in this case he got the wrong message from the negative reception of the film, or at least my and a few of my colleagues' negative perception of the film. In fact, I would go as far as to say that compared to some of the other pandering crap we got in 2023, Eternals is the kind of Marvel film we needed. Which is to say that even after reading through this MCU timeline book and understanding better that the Eternals were supposed to operate in the background and thus have a better understanding and kind of appreciation for the detachment the film has from the rest of the MCU, I unfortunately still can't bring myself to call it a good movie. Its plot is jumbled and tries to tell its story out of order without much rhyme or reason. There's too much story for the movie to tell, and probably would have fared out better as a Disney Plus show. And compared to Guardians of the Galaxy or the Avengers, where the characters are flamboyant in personality so that we can tell them apart, the Eternals are essentially clones of the same reserved, dramatic character, and therefore the film doesn't work as a team-up movie. It was a failed experiment to combine blockbuster elements such as superheroes and dazzling, bombastic effects with more art house-ish elements such as reserved performances and a less humorous, more heavily dramatic style. But those elements simply ended up being too conflicting, as the studio wasn't allowed to be as extravagant as it wanted to be, and Oscar-winning director Chloe Zhao was forced to play the safe card and wasn't allowed to be as cutthroat or heavy as she probably wanted to be. With all that said though, even though I stand by my thumbs down, as strange as it may sound, it's actually one of the better types of thumbs down to give. There are films out there that clearly should never have been made and are essentially a sin against nature to ever have been made, but there are also films out there that are more along the lines of stepping stones towards a brighter future, even if they didn't work as a whole. Films that introduce new ideas and new angles and familiar genres. And in its attempt to experiment with the superhero genre with its heavier, dramatic approach that's definitely unconventional for the MCU especially, that's exactly what Eternals does. It tests the water for what can and cannot work for audiences. It pushes the boundaries for what we can accept in the genre, and if it wasn't for filmmakers pushing those boundaries and experimenting like this one does, we wouldn't have the unique, innovative, generation-defining films that we have now. And at the end of the day, a film like Eternals attempts to be one of those new innovative films rather than just following the crowd. And even if it doesn't work, we still have the perk of being able to call it an experiment. We still get to say that they tried something new and ambitious, and that the director is being an artist and not just a drone. Meanwhile, when a cash grab fails, it just re-emphasizes a message that Hollywood just doesn't seem to get, no matter how much we hammer it in, that trying to coast on your safe bets only gets you so far. So while I can't bring myself to call Eternals a good movie, I can definitely bring myself to call it an essential movie. We need more filmmakers to experiment, because even if we don't necessarily like what we see on screen, seeing something fresh, new, and ambitious, especially with a big Disney Marvel budget behind it, will always be a sign of effort and innovation. The fact that Kumail and everyone else involved with the film were so sure that the film would work for everyone is exactly the mindset everyone involved with the film should take, as it's simply good faith in your work and a positive outlook. And that, above all else, should never go away no matter what you have to change for your film. So keep experimenting, keep pushing the boundaries, keep trying new things, and when you find that the thing you're trying out doesn't work for audiences, try something else. Something that Chloe Zhao is already moving forward with. We're much more appreciative of something new, weird, and ambitious, even if dysfunctional, than we are of something pandering, lame, and weak, no matter how well crafted. Filmmakers and certain divisions of audiences are not always going to share the same belief for what works for a film, but one thing we do share is that we're always looking to evolve and get some variety in what we see and do. You may have to balance that out with something we're familiar with, but not to the extent where you just coast on a cash grab. As much as we tend to instantly give our money to something we're familiar with, the film with hints of familiarity still has to come from the heart in order to connect with our hearts. And I have no doubt that Eternals came from the heart of its creators, even if it doesn't fully come together. And that need for heart, ambition, and creativity in what we see on that jumbo screen will always ring to audiences and filmmakers as eternally true.